Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas, and I'm very, very happy because we just observed 21st June, that is International Day of Yoga. Because while we are in West, we pronounce yoga as yoga, whatever it is. As Shakespeare said, what lies in a name, yet name is important. But when we have some historic moments unfolding in front of our eyes, that is like a dream fulfilled. In the context of yoga and culture, the new development relates to the inauguration of the new premises of Nalanda University. Talking to us about love for Bharatiya Sanskriti and yoga and the significance of these developments, I have the pleasure of welcoming धनंजय कुमार जी। धनंजय जी, स्वागत है आपका। नमस्ते।
Namaste Ashok ji, thanks for inviting me, and this is a very proud and happy moment for me to speak with you on this occasion.
So let us both go to Nalanda and take a look at these visuals and see what kind of emotions it arouses.
India has a rich tradition of education that goes back thousands of years. From the sacred teachings of the Vedas to the comprehensive studies in Gurukuls, education in ancient India was revered as a path to enlightenment and wisdom. Among the most illustrious of these centers was Nalanda University. Established in the 5th century AD, this magnificent institution was the world's first residential university, housing close to 10,000 students and teachers at its peak, and a library containing close to 9 million books. Chinese pilgrim and traveler Xuanzang also talks about the grandeur of Nalanda in his writings. For over 800 years, Nalanda flourished as a hub of intellectual exchange and innovation, embodying the spirit of open inquiry and academic excellence. However, the university faced its decline and eventual destruction in the 12th century. The idea to revive Nalanda University was first conceived at the 2007 East Asia Summit and continued in 2009 East Asia Summit with an active partnership of Asian countries. Since 2014, under the visionary leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the revival of Nalanda University has been brought to the forefront of India's cultural and educational renaissance.
अभी जब G20 में विश्व के मेहमान आए तो मैंने नालंदा की एक तस्वीर रखी थी वहाँ, और जब मैं दुनिया को कहता था 1500 साल पहले मेरे देश में दुनिया की उत्तम से उत्तम यूनिवर्सिटी हुआ करती थी, सुनते ही रह जाते थे। लेकिन हमें उसे प्रेरणा लेनी है, पर प्राप्त तो अभी करके रहना है।
Recognizing its historical significance and potential to contribute to global knowledge, Honorable Prime Minister has championed the restoration and revitalization of this ancient institution. The Net Zero Green campus of the university boasts of world-class infrastructure and has 6 schools and also has 4 centers of studies. The university offers various scholarships to international students. Today, Nalanda University attracts scholars from all over the world, offering programs that integrate traditional wisdom with contemporary challenges. It serves as a bridge between the past and the future, promoting peace, understanding, and sustainable development. The revival of Nalanda University is also bringing international students to India, embodying the ancient Indian ethos of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family, truly making India a Vishwa Bandhu, a friend to the world. Nalanda University stands as a symbol of India's enduring legacy of knowledge and innovation. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, its revival is not only a national achievement, but a gift to the world, reaffirming the timeless value of education and the quest for truth. Join us in celebrating this renaissance of learning as Nalanda University continues to illuminate minds and inspire generations to come.
So we are joining in the celebration of this renaissance. Dhananjay ji, your response when you heard about it and you have seen these visuals?
Well, Ashokji, I must share my emotional impact that this inauguration has, which is beyond the physical ceremonial inauguration. It is an upliftment of the spirit, because I'm happy and grateful and blissful that in my lifetime the day has come when Nalanda has been revived and brought back to life. So there cannot be anything greater, happier for me than to witness this occasion. But one thing I must mention, that my study of the history of Nalanda, that we keep talking about 9 or more million books. What I would like to bring to your attention and to your audience attention, that I do not think these were books, printed books as we know books are now. These were manuscripts. Manuscripts were handwritten manuscripts, one of a kind. Not that they are photocopies and printed, so one set is burned and you have another set. So this loss of manuscripts is a permanent loss. It's an eternal loss. It cannot be regained. So we can say that, we have lost, books have been burned, but knowledge has not been. Lot of knowledge. Maybe we may have recovered or recuperated a small fraction of that knowledge and understanding. Then we claim that we have not lost. We have great loss and probably irreparable loss. And that is the saddest part, mixed with joy for me.
I understand, and what you mentioned also reminds me that the railway station near Nalanda University still bears the name of that perpetrator who was responsible for burning, and this fire continued for months or years or whatever, these many manuscripts. But what might have been the psychology behind naming of railway station with Bakhtiar Khilji?
Well, not only this naming, this relates to a bigger issue of distorting the entire history of India. So there's this name, that name. I went to school and college in Allahabad, which is the supreme Prayag, or confluence of rivers. So, well, I don't want to go too much in detail, but what I understand is some of or most of it was intentional, some may be accidental. But anyway, when we find the ironies and alterations in history, whatever we know of to be correct, we must correct it. And we should not be shy or hesitant in correcting, because unless we know correct history, we cannot build correct future.
So you have been very passionate about sharing the wealth of ancient wisdom in the form of yoga with kids here. I remember when this YouTube was not there, you brought out some DVDs and maybe cassettes, and you did. So I mean, you should be recognized for your love of yoga, in addition to being a poet. Let us look at the quick clip of Prime Minister Modi. This time around, he was in Jammu and Kashmir, and here is what he said.
सूचना संसाधनों की बाढ़ है। ऐसे में मानव मस्तिष्क के लिए एक विषय पर फोकस कर पाना एक बड़ी चुनौती साबित होगा। इसका भी निदान हमें योग से मिलता है। हम जानते हैं एकाग्रता मानव मन की सबसे बड़ी ताकत है। योग ध्यान के जरिए हमारा ये सामर्थ्य भी निखरता है। इसलिए आज आर्मी से लेकर स्पोर्ट्स तक में योग को शामिल किया जा रहा है। स्पेस प्रोग्रेस में भी जो एस्ट्रोनॉट्स को ट्रेनिंग दी जाती है, उन्हें भी योग और ध्यान की ट्रेनिंग दी जाती है। इससे प्रोडक्टिविटी भी बढ़ती है, सहन शक्ति भी बढ़ती है। आजकल तो कई जेलों में कैदियों को भी योग कराया जा रहा है ताकि वो सकारात्मक विचारों पर अपने मन को केंद्रित कर सके। यानी योग समाज में सकारात्मक बदलाव के नए रास्ते बना रहा है।
तो प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ती है योग से, ऐसा कह रहे थे प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी। आप सहमत हैं उनसे?
मैं सहमत हूँ। प्रोडक्टिविटी के साथ साथ और बड़ी चीजें भी बढ़ती हैं
जी।
प्रोडक्टिविटी इज समथिंग आउटर, सो द रियल एसेंस ऑफ योग is not to produce or to increase your GDP, but to increase your awareness and consciousness and make a better human being. And what we find in the context of what we call globalization of yoga and soft power through it. So just a small comment I would like to make here is that yes, globalization has happened to some extent. It continues to happen. And if you look at US, maybe 20 or 25% of population do engage in yoga. And in many other countries also, same or similar. Although in some countries there are protests against yoga or yoga day. We should be aware of that. But for now, we can disregard that. But what my main concern is that, especially in the Western culture and civilization, the true essence of yoga has not fully reached, because the civilization is an intellectual civilization. Lot of emphasis on thinking hard. Even when we say sometimes, or I hear people say, meditate on this, it's an important subject. Meditate on this. Well, you don't meditate on this to solve a problem. You meditate to go beyond the problem and beyond the disturbances and characteristics of the mind. So the real journey of yoga is spiritual, and the physical material is only the first step, not the final step. So by yoga, most people would say, I do this asana, this practice, this, that. And I can twist my body more than other people. And so it's a gymnastic thing, which is good for the body. But body is not the goal. It's to uplift, purify, enhance your physical capability as step number one. Then comes concentration, your sensory perception, awakening your inner senses, leading to the state of meditation, not doing and struggling, working hard to meditate, but make it a natural process. Now, these deeper and subtler aspects of yoga has reached some people, and I'm happy about that. But for the masses who are engaged in yoga, it is still a physical process. It is an exercise. So I hope that gradually, but surely, the true essence of yoga will permeate in society, and the whole society will be unified in a spiritual bondage and move toward a more peaceful, harmonious, and prosperous world. That is the vision of yoga.
Dharanji, very well said. And indeed, to begin with, what is the immediate concern that we try to resolve? And I think gradually, whosoever evolves to the extent in the subtler aspects, as you suggested. Let me request you to share your initial journey of working towards propagating yoga when it was not as cool a thing as it has become now, and especially after United Nations having declared this as International Day of Yoga. how was it for you, and who was your teacher? What was it that brought you under the fold of yoga? If you reflect on that.
Well, I have been lucky to have many teachers, and I have learned bits and pieces from all of them. But my real teacher is Krishna, and many swamis, many yoga masters I have learned from, and I can give you a lot of names. But I learned from Swami Satchidanand most of the yogic techniques in Yogaville here in Virginia, and many others. But my inspiration was something deeper in life, because I had a very busy job, 25, 30 years, and I've traveled to 40, 50 countries. And I found similarity of issues and problems everywhere. I said, if the problems are similar, not identical, then there must be a reason why they persist. So they persist at many levels. They persist at health level, at mental distraction level, at different diseases people are suffering from, which can be easily either cured or definitely prevented. So my first attraction was to learn yoga in the correct, proper, and authentic way. And secondly, how to bring the benefit and share with others. Others being, I have taught yoga for about 30 years, starting from 1980s, and tried to improve myself. And it was a first-hand experience that how my own approach to life, my own approach to living, and living a healthy and happy life was made possible. I said, if it can happen to me and I'm an ordinary person, then it can happen to everyone. So I intensely started teaching as much I could give and bring to the attention of my students. I have done, but I did not teach only asana practice, because with asana comes pranayama. And all of the asanas have a proper method of breathing while performing or engaging in those asanas, which is somehow still missing. So when I started teaching correctly, hopefully correctly, then my students really appreciated it. That when they tried to do this without the breathing, integrating the breathing aspect, pranayama aspect, they had felt a little restless. They will not feel comfortable. They got tired very easily. I said, if you get tired doing yoga, or after doing 15, 20 minutes yoga, if you think you have lost your energy, you are tired, there's something wrong you are doing. You should feel more energetic, more enthusiastic after yoga than before. But the opposite result I was seeing. So I tried to correct that as my first priority. And I also had a discussion or a satsang group on Patanjali Yoga Sutra and Bhagavad Gita, even part of the class, or a special class on a weekly or monthly basis. So I carried all these aspects of yoga together in unison. So that was, I think, my best effort, and I hope my contribution.
So let me also request you to dive in your memory lane. And I remember you created a series of videos with your daughter probably at that time, and how easy or challenging it was for you to bring kids to learn about yoga, about culture, and you have been at the forefront with a few other like-minded friends who have started a school in Washington, where you were making kids aware about Indian culture, languages, and art forms, and of course, yoga was a part of it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah.
let me just add one line.
Sure.
So, how many years you were a part of it, and what is the take-home lesson for you from that experience, or it still continues, and I don't know about it?
Okay, let me be honest. Okay, that school that we started about 44 years ago was when I had my first child, and it was purely selfish reason that I wanted I had one boy, one girl. When they were 3, 4 years old, I said, my goodness, I need to change or enhance their environment so that they can grow into a good human beings and contribute to society rather than take and extract. So I said, let me bring some aspects of culture to their attention, like music, like language. Hindi language they should be familiar with, and not only because it's a language, because it's a very evolved language and it has many times more words than any other language. It has many sounds and many expressions, and it is connected with history and culture. So I thought language is important, and some sort of performing arts like music or dance or some activity, painting, sketching, whatever. So I started 1 or 2 classes and at my basement, and so a few friends knew about it. So I included them, then more and more and more. So in a way, it started with pure individual selfishness, and the scope of my selfishness grew and grew. So it encompassed the whole society. That is my selfishness. So in the last 44 years, the school has grown. It owns its own building and has about 100 classes per week and about 20 or 25 teachers. And we teach Indian languages, culture, music, dance, tabla, instrument, and all kinds of dances. And we have even recently introduced fusion dances and fusion music to be of interest to few more modern day younger generation. So bringing younger generation into the culture fold is, to me, very important, because children create our future society, and how they grow up will determine how our civilization and culture grows. So I have a lot of experience in teaching at college and universities. So I graduated from that, and now I teach children.
Wonderful. Yeah, Dhananjay, let me take you back to Nalanda briefly. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in his address there, also talked about making India the center of education and knowledge as his mission, which resonates with what you have already done in your own way. And he looks at Nalanda's restoration as ushering in of a new golden age for the nation. So here is a part of his address.
No, I
तीसरे कार्यकाल की शपथ ग्रहण करने के बाद पहले 10 दिनों में ही नालंदा आने का अवसर मिला है। ये मेरा सौभाग्य तो है ही। मैं इसे भारत की विकास यात्रा के एक शुभ संकेत के रूप में देखता हूं। नालंदा ये केवल नाम नहीं है। नालंदा एक पहचान है, एक सम्मान है। नालंदा एक मूल्य है, नालंदा एक मंत्र है, गौरव है, गाथा है। नालंदा है उद्घोष इस सत्य का कि आग की लपटों में पुस्तकें भले जल जाएं, लेकिन आग की लपटें ज्ञान को नहीं मिटा सकती। नालंदा के ध्वंस ने भारत को अंधकार से भर दिया था। अब इसकी पुनर्स्थापना भारत के स्वर्णिम युग की शुरुआत करने जा रहा है।
Yeah, you were responding. You don't agree with him or what?
No. I mean, I am nobody to claim that I agree or don't agree. That's not the point. And there is hardly any other public speaker more eloquent than the Prime Minister. I would just wish to add one word, that yes, it is a symbol of Vikas, growth. I would like to add Utthan, upliftment, because upliftment is the key to our culture, not more and more, but better and better.
Absolutely. So let me, we just have 2-3 minutes. I want you to briefly share. You have, you are committed to kind of develop a syllabus or some sort of a course for students to learn about Indian culture, and you have also started implementing that in some parts of India, some schools. We just have 2-3 minutes. Kindly explain that.
Okay, that's a tough job, but I'll try. So that concept is not to change or replace the education system, but to add those important elements which are missing. And I found about 10 or 15 elements missing, and they can only be done with small children, primary school children. Because by the time high school, it is too late. So what I'm trying to do is add those elements in once per week class, and now about 100 schools have joined, and I'm expecting that by the end of the year, maybe 500 schools.
Mention one element when you say 10, 15 elements.
Okay, one or two I'll mention. One is self-awareness is missing in education system, in the books and curriculum. It's about the outer world. The inner world, the knower, the student is missing. And its curriculum and exam and grading is very stressful. So under stress, children don't learn much. They only tend to memorize. Thirdly, the education system focuses more on the left brain, masculine brain, which is competition, struggle, analysis, rather than right, the feminine brain, which is more compassionate, more natural, more creative, more etc. So integrating both sides of the brain. And thirdly, if you allow me to say, is imagination and problem solving. Because as Einstein said, no problem can be solved with the same mindset that has created it. So a different mindset which is innovative, can think of alternative futures, can think long term instead of immediate profit. So that expansion, explosion of mind and new ideas, new creativity. So these are the 3 or 4, and I have 10 more which I can talk another time.
Probably we'll have another session with details on that. But I want to commend you, compliment you on being an out-of-box thinker, as well as being someone whose selfishness expands and sort of embraces the whole society. So it was great touching the significance of International Day of Yoga, as well as the arrival of Nalanda University back, which has the investment of 1,800 crore rupees, as we hear, and it's a beautiful campus. So may good things happen. Once again, thanking Dhananjay Kumarji and thanking all of you with lots of good wishes. Namaste.
Thank you again. It was a pleasure.